Hello and welcome to the 81st episode of Growing Up Geek, the weekly podcast for geek entertainment and nostalgia. My name is Brad and I'm joined by a man who has never once cosplayed as Kratos, my brother Rob.
What?
What's up, man?
Oh, not much. How you doing?
Doing well. Have you heard of Video Games Live?
I have indeed heard of Video Games Live, actually a long time ago when I was told about GANG, the Gaming Audio Networking Guild.
Oh, of course.
Created by Mr. Thomas Tallarico.
The only rock star of video game music.
I don't even know that he is. Like, he's just a guy who's, like, really obnoxious and just enough to be all about video games. I think he did Toe Jam and Earl for Virgin.
Well, it's funny you said that because my friend Mike went and saw Video Games Live this week.
Yeah.
It came to Pittsburgh, which is really cool. Tommy Tallarico was there. And when he was asking me, he's like, who is that guy again? Literally the first thing I could think was Toe Jam and Earl.
Yep.
And I was like, that's not a great resume alone. I'm sure he's done more. But I just remember GamePro magazine pictures of him with his mullet and his rock guitar,
Yep.
you know?
Yep.
But for you, that's got to be like your celebrity because you want to break into that industry.
Absolutely. I mean, to be honest, like Nobuo Uematsu, the Final Fantasy guy, is really like my celebrity, or people like that.
Right.
Tommy Tallarico is cool, but he was more of like a pop angle. And that's what Video Games Live is. It's like, how do you get audiences to sit and listen to video game music?
Right. Well, this was actually at Heinz Hall, and the way he described it, it was like there were cosplayers there, like dressed as Mario and Zelda, and he said there was one guy dressed full God of War style as Kratos, which just made me think, like, when he leaves, does the seat have like a white and red like paint on it? You know? But
yeah. Well, you know what? They're actually going to be coming to Philadelphia too, so I'm planning on seeing them. They're going to be at the VGX Expo in October.
Yeah.
So I'm thinking of if I'm going to do some cosplay, probably what I'm going to do is Frank from Dead Rising, and I'm going to see if I can procure one of those giant Lego heads to wear.
Oh, that'd be great. Yeah, like the mod version.
And all I have to do is practice running around with a camera in my hand, sort of weird limpingness.
Yeah, exactly. He said there was like a webcam, like live feed of some guy's house who had like created video games.
Charles Babbage's house.
That's what I said. I'm like, Charles Babbage, the creator of the computer? And he's like,
watch him use his card
me?
Punch machine to make cotton on a spool.
Live from the other world. So anyway, let's go ahead and get into some geeky news. Every week we love to read lots of geek news stories, bring you our favorite. And this week, we're actually going to do 3 because probably one of the biggest news stories since we have created this show, I would say, has finally dropped. It's been rumored for a long time. It's finally dropped, and we're going to get to that. But let's go ahead and do some smaller items first, and then we'll get to the meat.
The meat and potatoes. Some interesting stuff coming from Verizon. I guess they had like a press junket or something going. So 2 kind of big things came out of that.
Yeah.
One makes me think Verizon is cool.
Yeah.
And one makes me kind of hate them and be like, Verizon is who I've always suspected they are. And that's probably why I'm officially announcing on the show, I'm canceling half of my Fios service.
Oh, ouch.
I'm going to get rid of cable TV, keep the internet, and see what I can do with that. But I really can't justify paying $60 a month or whatever for cable.
Well, you know what? We just reduced our Netflix number of discs down because we're doing so much instant streaming. I mean, it's just not even worth it now to have so many discs. And I have a feeling that cable, like, it might be next because we're just not watching very much. There's so much internet
start
content.
Competing like with their prices. Seriously, like $60 a month or whatever. Like people are gonna be like, no, it has to be like $15. Seriously.
Yeah. So what was the good thing?
All right. So the good thing, the kind of the cool thing that makes Verizon seem like a cutting edge group is they recently announced that for Fios TV. They've had this sort of widgets bar for a while that'll tell you weather and stuff.
Right.
They are now going to have like applications, like
apps.
Tonight, they will be having Twitter and Facebook.
Of course.
Exactly.
Of course.
Like that's
My
like,
gosh. Yeah, social networking.
Who do we get, says the big rich guy who knows very little about computers. And then his crony, Twitter and Facebook seem to be popular on CNN.
No, it's even worse than that. The guy goes to like some sort of summit where there's like, massages and hot tubs available. and he's told there is a trend, the Twitters, and then he comes back and smokes his cigar. I mean,
pretty much, yeah, exactly. But it does make it the first time that either of these things are now available on television,
right?
Officially, it actually has dropped before the Xbox
right.
thing has come out yet.
So yeah, twittering from your television.
Yeah,
kind of weird.
For right now, actually, supposedly it's only read only. You can just read Twitters.
Even more handicap.
Read twits, but yeah, exactly.
Well, if that's the cool thing, I can't wait to hear the bad thing.
Oh boy!
Oh, Mike, I'm clenched.
Oh gosh, bad news. I fear for people waiting for the iPhone to come to Verizon.
Right.
Because Verizon has started making their own app store.
Oh, okay.
You've probably seen the commercial where this kind of sweaty guy is sitting in a lunchroom with this.
Oh yeah,
with
the golf GPS app.
Yeah, he's across the table from this attractive couple who are clearly,
who both have separate Verizon phones and are both super excited to show off to their sweaty friend.
And they're just like, look at how we have applications now on our Verizon phone, and he's just like, I don't need that. I represent what every consumer who says no to Verizon is, whereas you are the attractive couple who are clearly doing it, and that's why this product will make me sexy.
The goofiest part of that ad is when the guy's like, I can even do this, and he holds up like a screen that literally says like golf GPS, and it's a title screen. It's not the app, it's just the title screen, and the guy's like, whoa, I didn't know that. It was like, what?
Do not set that down. I will take it.
Yeah, it's like, could they not show the actual app?
You can play Need for Speed.
It's weak.
Like, I could play Need for Speed on probably the first phone that came out, and it always looked just as weak.
Yeah. It's desperate. So yeah, that is bad news.
Okay,
on the
so
app
on
front.
top of that, here's the real bad news.
Oh, the real bad news.
Verizon phones will only be able to access apps from the Verizon store.
Okay.
Now, they haven't said this specific combination of words, but I'm saying this now.
Right.
The iPhone on Verizon will only be able to download apps that Verizon sells you.
Are you making a curse right now?
This is a pox.
That you're
but I am
a tech pox.
From everything I know about Verizon,
right.
The fact that they will not have Google Maps on any of their phones, but they freely have V Maps or whatever, which you have to pay an additional fee to use.
Yeah, I gotcha.
They're going to say, let's have a Verizon, the V App Store, and it'll be like a little red V icon on the thing. It won't even be called, the iPhone. It'll, be called the iPhone V.
I got
it. With Verizon with anything.
No, it's gross.
But I saw that news today. It was actually a tiny little snidbit, but it stuck in my head like a knife. It was like...
All right. Yeah, well, let me see your snidbit and raise you one.
Oh.
This is movie news that came out. Actually, big movie news in terms of comic book fans. If you're a fan of Green Lantern, they have finally cast the Green Lantern.
Whoa.
And I'm going to tease with that and just say that this is a huge comic book property, especially for DC fans. Green Lantern, I was not super aware of as a character until watching the New Frontiers Blu-ray, which I highly recommend people go out and check out. And it mostly focuses on Hal Jordan, who is a test pilot. He's the man without fear. And he's an ordinary man, but he's given this ring of power, this green ring, by a dying alien who is asking Hal to take his place as the Green Lantern. Very cool story. I didn't know much about it until I saw the movie. Now, I can really see why people love that. And so they went through a whole casting process for this film, which is going to be coming out next year. And some of the people up for the role were Jared Leto, apparently. Justin Timberlake did a screen test. So it was a really weird week leading up to the final announcement, which is that Ryan Reynolds is going to play the title role.
Ryan Reynolds,
who a lot of people would probably have recognized as Deadpool in the new X-Men Origins Wolverine movie.
Ooh.
And and it's weird to me because a lot of people, including Jeff Johns, who's the writer of a lot of the best Green Lantern stories, have twittered about this and approved it, and said, "Oh, great, Ryan Reynolds, exciting." But when I think of him, Deadpool is the only thing I've seen him in that even remotely comic booky or even action. I guess he was in Blade Trinity. But mostly when I think of Ryan Reynolds, I think of romantic comedies. Like, he's the sweet, innocent guy, and that's fine. I mean, I'm not denigrating him, but Green Lantern is the man without fear. Like,
yeah. I mean, not to mention that it's bizarre because he's already established kind of in the geek community as Deadpool, you know? Like, granted, one's Marvel, one's DC, but on the screen, it doesn't make a difference.
Right, and they were set to do a spin-off movie of Deadpool. I don't know if you heard that, but apparently some people liked his character. They said he was a good version of Deadpool. So I don't know if that'll, interfere.
Yeah, I feel sour about this. For example, that initial, Jared Leto, okay, he's cool. Don't get me wrong. I think that would work. Justin Timberlake, do we need, crossover actors and singers? Is that what we're looking for?
Right.
And then thirdly, Ryan Reynolds is just so, sarcastic. I know him from Waiting, the comedy about being a waiter at basically a TGI Fridays type place. Not a heroic guy at all, you know? And maybe this is his attempt to stretch himself, but I really feel like this is more the studio's attempt to cash in on a hot property, you know?
The way they're spinning this, I'm a little unsure. The director is the guy that directed Casino Royale and Goldeneye, so he's got James Bond cred, but again, that might be kind of the wrong angle. I don't know. And then the writers are all TV, Heroes / Smallville, those kind of TV caliber. So I'm super nervous about this. Now, I don't want to make people feel like I'm a huge Green Lantern fan, because there's certainly people out there who could say more than me, but there are a lot of big fans. He's a major character in DC, and I know people want him handled right.
I am not excited now about this movie. I had very little going in.
It's going to take a lot to prove it. I mean, Tobey Maguire had to really prove himself to get into the Spider-Man role. He had to show them that he could do the action part. With Ryan Reynolds, it's just going to be, can he be tough? That's what I'm going to need to see in the trailer to be on board for that. But yes, go see the New Frontiers Blu-ray. It is very nice.
Okay.
All right, moving on now to the big piece of news, long rumored, finally revealed, the Google operating system. This is something that literally, since there was a Google, nerds have been talking about. Oh man, they're going to have an operating system. And it was always kind of well, everyone says that except Google. And on Tuesday, July 7th, they finally revealed on their blog, they posted the Google Chrome OS announcement. So a couple of quick facts about this, and then I'll let you react. I know you reacted on your Twitter, and I want to get to that because we don't have much information. There isn't a picture or a screenshot or a demo or anything like that. But there are specifications here. So here's what we're dealing with. It is a open source operating system running on Linux. It is basically Google Chrome, which is their browser, running within a new windowing system. That's how they described it. So that's their words. Available in the second half of 2010. So we're looking at a ways off. And this is going to be targeted towards netbooks, sort of lightweight internet-enabled PCs. A lot of people know about netbooks. They've already made some hardware deals with Acer, Texas Instruments, Toshiba, Asus, HP. So they've got people lined up who are interested, and they're saying this is for, now you tell me if you fit these.
Okay.
People who spend most of their time on the web.
Check.
People who want their data accessible from wherever they are.
Check.
Check for me big time on that one. People who don't want to have to worry about losing their computer or forgetting to back up their files.
Very big check.
Big check for me as well. I've got laptops and PCs laying around the house that have data on them. I don't know what data, but anyway, reaction. Let's get to it. You twittered about this.
First of all, it is exciting because serious competition on the OS front, and smart competition too. I kind of think of this as when Nintendo sort of came out with the Wii.
Yeah.
It was like Sony and Microsoft duking it out. And then Nintendo says, you know what, we're going to take a completely different approach. So right now you have Apple and Microsoft duking out.
Right.
Google comes along and says, you know what, we're going to have an operating system that, it's meant to be run on either one. Sort of like how Wii was like, feel free to own an Xbox or a PS3, but you also get a Wii,
Yeah.
And then cloud computing, it's the big phrase these days, but that's a different approach completely.
Right. Yes. So you're positive on it initially.
Initially.
But you did have that question. Go ahead.
Yeah, exactly. is it powerful enough? What makes a person decide to go with Windows instead of Mac? Typically, it's, can I play this game? Is Pro Tools going to work on it?
Right.
So the little stuff,
Yeah.
Office stuff, the things that 90% of computer users use computers for,
Yeah.
that's everywhere, and no matter where you go, you're going to find it. But is Google going to have like a killer app that's going to be like, no, you need to use Google if you want to play this game, or you need to use Google if you want to be the best at graphic design,
like what you were saying up front about it running on every platform, do you think they're even positioning this as a competitor, or do you think that they're looking at this like, hey, run it on whatever you want, like run it on Mac, PC, run it on your phone, which we'll get to in a second, because there's a little bit of a conflict with Android over all this. But yeah, do you think they're even going after the desktop OS?
They definitely are, but they're also positioning themselves in a place where they can
ease their way in, like sneak in.
Exactly. Here's the crazy thing, and something I realized. If anything, this is a big win for open source operating systems, because this one is open source. Because everybody else has been kind of like, all right, I might try Ubuntu. But then you have to go through all these problems of like dual booting your system and stuff like that, and like the hassle of that. What's cool about this is you just type it in, it's free, and there it is. Like,
that's what I was gonna say next. Is it is free, and that was the first question Amber had when I read this. I just went, whoa, and she went, what? And I said, Google announced their operating system, and her first thing is it free? And I just thought that was awesome. Right. And I didn't even think of that. I was like, well, what can it do? And then she's asking, the practical thing. Is it free? And yes, it is free, which I think is interesting. Again, they're saying that they're going to try to make an OS for the modern computer user, someone who's constantly online. Yeah. And I've seen a lot of bad reaction to this where people have said, oh, yeah, well, what if I'm not online? And I need to kind of respond to this because I hear this all the time. Is like, people, do you realize that the internet is basically like power and water now?
Yeah.
I mean, yes, there are places if you're out on the road, but for your home computing, like it's a monthly fee, just like garbage.
Right.
It's no different to me than any other, resource or bill that you pay. And if you don't have it, it's the same. Well, what if you don't have power? What if your water goes out or something? It's like, it's the same thing to me. So I don't think that's really much of a criticism.
One of the major angles that Google has, not just for being free and available on the internet, but also as a guy who works at a computer store, people love netbooks. They're only like $300 to $500, and they're strictly for surfing the internet. That's great, but here's the thing. There's no operating system designed for netbooks.
That's true.
XP is the only one that runs on netbooks. Vista is too bulky and powerful to be on a netbook. Windows 7 is going to have a scalable version down on a netbook, but Google Chrome OS is designed to accommodate netbooks, because all the big power is going to be done on the back end.
And I've started to, and I've mentioned this a million times before, but I've started to move so much of my life over to Google services. Picasa has all my photos. I'm actually reading the podcast notes off of Google Notebook right now, which I can even make notes while I'm at work and then come home and pull that up and make additional notes. You know what I mean? Like, the only thing that's lacking there, and I think this is going to be the big reveal, is a G drive, a hard drive that basically stores all your files online,
Yeah. Think of it as you're typing it, it actually is actively saving.
Yeah, if you use their online spreadsheet editor, which I assure you spreads the sheets, if you're typing in that, there's like not even a save button.
Right.
It's just automatically saving.
Or like if you've ever, for those of you who've played World of Warcraft, that moment where like you're going to leave the game and you're thinking to yourself, wait a minute, aren't I supposed to save before I leave the game? And then you realize, no, because it's all still there,
Right, and that's awesome. Now, a lot of people have been bringing questions up about how is this different from Android, and I think that is a good question because Android is their cell phone operating system, and Microsoft recently joined in and made fun of this, which never a good idea, but Steve Ballmer, who apparently is mentioned every week now on our show, had this to say. He was saying, last time I checked, you don't need 2 client operating systems. It's good to have one. And the article actually said, Steve Ballmer laughs off Google OS. It just makes him look scared whenever they say stuff like that. Like, he actually said, they can't make up their mind over there, you know?
Gosh. It's like you expect fanboys to say that, not the corporate head to be all like, oh, I don't know, I suppose it's a good idea. Wah, wah. You don't diss the geniuses at Google.
And then it says like the largely pro-Microsoft crowd chuckled, and it's like, ugh, I don't even want to be a part of that.
Right.
Right before they went to their massages or whatever. But yeah, I mean,
Android is built for phones, and phones have a very particular interface separate from the keyboard and mouse and things like that PCs have. I have no doubts that the two are going to have interchangeability.
Yeah, I mean, Android's open source as well, so people can write apps potentially that would work across both. I mean, what they said is the nice thing here is if you can write web apps, you can write Google Chrome apps,
Hey, maybe you access even Chrome OS from your Android OS.
Yeah. They mention hardware. Like, they actually said they want Chrome OS to be made for people who don't want to spend hours configuring their computers with new hardware. So I'm very curious to see on the hardware side, like, what can this thing do? Can it scan? Can it sync your iPod?
What about connecting a printer to it? Will I be able to print from like a different country? Or
oh my gosh, yeah. See, that's the exciting part. If this works out, and we got to move on, but the last thing I'll say is like, if it works out, they're going to make a new like modern type of computing, which like takes all of the stuff into account. Because a lot of the old operating systems are based on upgrades to the old way.
Yeah.
But this is like from scratch. Like, get this, we all already are on this World Wide Web.
Yeah.
So everything, like you say, maybe networking your printer across the world or something.
Yeah.
So very exciting. We got to move on, but before we close out our show, every week we love to get nostalgic, reminisce about growing up geek. And this week I got an exciting one for you. I was listening to Larry Herb, who is Major Nelson on Xbox, and he was talking about this website called GDGT. It's Gadget, and it's basically kind of like a tech graveyard. Like, you go to this website, you register, and then you start adding up like a list of like all the tech that you used to have over the years. And a big one they talked about on there was the Rio Karma. And I saw a picture of this, and I'm like, oh, the Karma. And there was all these comments on there about the Karma. So I wanted to take a second to go to the tech graveyard and dig out something we used to have. Speak on it, if you will.
I got the Rio Karma because I was avoiding getting an iPod because I wanted something that I could play all these files, like I was avoiding the iTunes, I guess you could say.
Yeah, what was the cool features about the Karma that you liked?
It was small. First of all, compared to like the first and second gen iPod, this thing had a smaller footprint. It was thicker, but it was just this tiny little box in your hand, and then it had a really smart, I felt like, interface rather than the scroll wheel, which Apple had the rights to for forever. This had a mouse type scroll wheel on the corner where your thumb rested.
Yeah, I owned a Rio Carbon, and it was a tiny wedge-shaped silver MP3 player, and it was very similar. You'd roll the wheel on the side. It felt very natural, and you click the wheel in. It was one of those few ideas that actually felt equivalent to the Apple wheel, like without stealing from it.
Yeah, it was a good competitor. They did a really good job. And not to mention, I had a lot of faith in Rio because they were one of those first pioneers of the MP3 player. I think even Matt had it, one of the very early.
Oh, dude, was that a Rio?
I thought it was.
He had like a 32 megabyte like Volt, like the Rio.
No. I had the Volt before the Karma.
Oh, okay.
The Volt was the CD MP3 player, so I'd load MP3s onto CDs and access them from that. But they took forever to load.
Yeah, that's right. Oh my God! So you have to talk real quick about the failure, which this seems to happen with you in technology.
Yeah.
Let's give an RIP. What happened to your Karma?
I was in Prague.
That's not normally how these stories start, but it's totally true.
Crazy nights in Prague.
Well, you were touring with your college touring choir.
Exactly. There's a choir that I was touring Europe, and we were stopping through and
to denigrate Beethoven's grave.
Exactly. Beethoven's grave, Mozart's monument, because nobody knows where he's buried. And we were just having a fun time there. And Prague is a great city, by the way. If you want to visit a European city that's not tainted by like advertising and like modernization,
right.
Prague has been very well preserved by years and years of communism.
Yeah, and now someone in Prague has your Karma.
Yes, because we found these taxis, sort of waved them down. We didn't even call them over. It was like really shady.
Right.
And then like we're riding in them, and then I get out, and I always do this thing. Anytime I'm getting in or out of a car, I pat my pockets.
Right.
Just realize, okay, wallet, cell phone, things like that.
I do that too. I always pat my wallet, but it looks like I'm touching my butt, and I always make sure that like it's very quick and discreet.
Always touching my butt. And I pack around, and I realize I don't have my my Rio Karma on me. And
you're in Prague.
I turn and I go to like get the taxi because I realized I left it in the seat. The taxi like books out of there.
No.
You know, like it's probably even more intense from what I remember, but it seemed like the guy realized I left this in there and was just like, I'm getting away with this. You know?
Maybe he did. He saw it drop and he was like,
American technology.
I think Mission Impossible was shot in Prague at the beginning, or they're in Prague.
Yes.
You should have like run to the phone booth and been like, my team is dead.
Yeah. That would have been really funny, except for the serious situation where I lost my $100-something MP3 player.
Oh my God, that is so terrible. And plus, it was loaded with your music.
Yeah, and just moments before that night, I had a really touching like moment with it where I was sitting watching the rivers of Prague run, and I just listened to some Sigur Rós, and just it was very cool, and I was very happy with my MP3 player at that moment. And then next thing you know, it was gone.
Yeah. Well, at least you had one last night with it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that is our technology graveyard segment. I think I want to do more of those because there's a lot of old pieces of tech that we owned that we totally don't have anymore. And I feel like a lot of people would probably enjoy that. If you enjoyed that segment, you can write us, let us know, or tell us some old tech that you used to have by clicking on our email link on our website at growing-up-geek.com. And you can follow Rob, as always, on Twitter at twitter.com/GUGRob. That's going to do it for this week. Once again, my name is Brad.
And I'm a cloud.
And we will see you next week.